Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage BlogHer founder Elisa Camahort Page and author Guy Kawasaki.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here, and please thank you to Guy Kawasaki for joining us today at BlogHer 13.
Thank you. I'm honored. I literally am honored.
Oh, thank you.
Because?
Yes, because you are the first male, non-presidential, non-community keynoter. So that's a big deal. So thank you for being here.
It's come a long way since San Jose, the Hyatt, huh?
That's right, that's right. How many of you were there in 2006? San Jose Hyatt by the pool.
By the
Come on,
pool.
that was
It
pretty
was
nice.
by the pool. Yep.
That was pretty nice.
Yep.
So Guy, the first thing I want to ask you about is your new book, because the title is three words that I think resonate, at least two out of the three probably resonate with every person in this room: author, publisher, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And we often talk about the entrepreneurial spirit of our community, the entrepreneurial spirit of bloggers, and of course bloggers, many of them at their heart are writers, and many of them are interested in being authors. So I love the acronym APE. And why don't you tell me a little bit about why you think authors today have to be entrepreneurs at heart?
Okay, so I have to give you a little bit of background. That question is what you call a softball, okay? So I wrote a book called Enchantment, and I got an order for 500 copies of Enchantment as an ebook, but my publisher was not able to fill that order because there was no way for them to sell 500 copies to 500 different people. And so she said, we have to sell it through Amazon or Apple or Barnes & Noble. And so I told the company that wanted to do this to go buy it through them. And she first bought 10 through Apple, and then Apple said, you're buying too many copies. They stopped her. And so she finally talked to the people, and they said, well, I need to buy 490 more. And so Apple told her, as only Apple could, to buy 490 more gift cards and scratch off the back to get the promo code. And I just so floored that that was it. So that's when I started exploring self-publishing. And then I met a woman named Haley Sweet Tucker, and she convinced me to self-publish a book. And then I fell in love with Google+. And because I loved Google+ so much, I wanted to write a book about Google+.
Are there Google+ fans in the house?
Yeah.
All right. You know, Hallie was the keynote at BlogHer 05, the very first, so it all comes full circle.
Yeah. So then I wrote What the Plus and self-published it, and I found out how hard it is to be a self-published author. And so then I decided, as Steve Jobs would say, there must be a better way. And so I decided to write a book about self-publishing so that everybody wouldn't have to figure it out like I had to figure it out. And I also found a great co-author named Sean Welch. So if not for Sean Welch, I would not be here today.
Did you have co-authors on your other books?
No, this is the first time I really co-authored. I've had researchers, but I've never co-authored a book before. So we co-authored this book, and at first we focused on the P part of APE, the publishing, how to get it into word styles, how to get it into Adobe InDesign, how to deploy it, the technical part. But in early testing of the book, many people said, well, I know how to do that, and Kindle can do that. How do I sell the book? And then other people told us, well, I'm not as far along as laying the book out and selling it. How do I write a book? I've never written it. And I happen to love tricolons, so I wanted something that was something, 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 right? And so I wanted something early in the alphabet so that if there's ever a alphabetical listing of books about self-publishing, guess who's going to be first? And then I wanted a word that could become a verb. Like we don't search for things, we Google it, right? So I want people to ape their book. And so that's the genesis of author, publisher, entrepreneur, which really a self-publisher author has to do all three. And I will tell you the hardest part of A, P, and E is E. It's being the entrepreneur. Many authors make the mistake of, I'll write a book, and then at the very end they figure out, oh, whether you're traditionally published or self-published, you need to start marketing it. And at that point they sort of wake up and they say, well, how do I market this thing? Maybe I should get into social media. Maybe I should develop a platform. But developing a platform takes 6 to 12 months. And so it's kind of too late if you've already written the book. And so that's how the E part of APE came to be.
How many of you have already published a book, self or otherwise?
Yeah.
All right, wow. How many of you, put your hands down if it was traditional publishing, how many of you have self-published a book? All right, how many of you are interested in self-publishing or publishing a book? Right, so there's a lot there. Yeah.
So, well, for those people, we should tell them now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is a card, obviously. There's a company called Enthril in Calgary, Enthril. And what you do, they print out these cards for your book, and on the back, there's a special area where you scratch off a unique promo code.
So like an Apple gift card.
And like an Apple gift card, except for APE, right. And so the beauty of this card is that now, this is roughly 500 copies of APE. I could not carry 500 copies of APE with me. So now, the 500 people who want to self-publish a book, after we're done, you come up here and get one of these, and this is a free copy of APE, essentially. So, yeah.
Yay. Awesome, thank you very much. When was your first book published?
Oh, it was back in the last century. It was 1987.
Okay.
Were you even born then?
Yes, I was over 30 by then, but thank you. That was nice. You're buttering up the interviewer.
Yeah, right.
So that's a lot of years, and the publishing industry has so radically changed.
Yes.
And I know that we had BlogHer Writers a couple of years ago that was put together by Penguin.
Yeah.
We had a lot of Penguin agents and publishers and literary agents, and they were talking about this whole thing about the following, and it's so intangible. They couldn't put a number on what kind of following will make us pique our interest. You know, how many followers, how big a platform do you really need to have? And
Yeah.
it kind of was interesting to hear all the very many wonderful, actionable things they could tell us, but that was one part that was really definitely more art than science, and yet publishers they're not putting money into marketing anymore very much,
well,
right?
they never have. Well, unless you're, if you're J.K. Rowling, yes. If you're Colin Powell, if you're Hillary Clinton, yes,
Yeah.
but not you or I. So there's already a great irony in a publisher asking that question, because theoretically the reason why you go to a traditional publisher is because they're going to do the marketing.
Right.
But now if you approach a traditional publisher, the first thing they're going to ask you is, how big is your platform? Which is, if you think about it, a totally ass-backwards question, because you're supposed to be asking them how big is their platform, because they're the one who are getting 85% of the revenue and you're getting 15. And so, excuse me, but that's what you're supposed to do. And they don't get that at all. So, I mean, the larger your following, the less you need traditional publishing.
I remember the very first BlogHer Con, not BlogHer, that I went to in 2004, I think. An author said that he made more money from putting affiliate links to his own book, Amazon affiliate links on his blog. When he sold a book that way,
Yeah.
he made more on it than he made from his publisher for the
Well,
book.
I'll just give you some, real inside numbers. I love tactics, okay? So, for the ebook version of APE, which retails for $9.99, Sean and I, co-authors, we make $7 per copy. So we have 70% royalty rate. For the paperback version of APE, which sells, its suggested retail is $25. The Kindle street price is $16.50. At $16.50, we make $9 per paperback. $9 freaking dollars per paperback. That is roughly 6 times what you would make from a traditional publisher who's asking you to do the marketing. Mm-hmm. And so one of the great benefits of self-publishing is you make more money. Mm-hmm. Now, to be honest, you make more money per copy. But if the traditional publisher could sell 7 times more than you could, then you would go with a traditional publisher, because at some level it's about the money, it's not the per copy amount that you make. But suffice it to say, I would be extremely surprised if most traditional publishers could sell 7 times what you could.
But you don't think they're I mean, I think most people think that with a traditional publisher, you're getting distribution, at least on a physical book, that you can never achieve print on demand or by paying for your own self-publishing.
So this is an interesting question. So Ape is not in any airport bookstore. It's because we don't know how to crack the airport bookstore. It's not at Costco. Okay?
Right.
It's not at Barnes & Noble. But you have to think about, what percentage of your genre of book is sold at Costco. I mean, Costco has, like, I don't know, 150,000 square feet, but only about 200 square feet are for books. And there's only, I don't know, 100 titles there. So the probability of you getting into Costco anyway is pretty low. So yes, they can get you into airport bookstores. They can get you into that. But at what price? I'll tell you how print on demand works. So we use two print on demand: CreateSpace, which is part of Amazon, and Lightning Source, which is part of Ingram. And
part of what?
Ingram.
Okay.
Ingram, Ingram, the big book distributor. So for CreateSpace, I'll tell you how fast print on demand works. So we approve the proofs of Ape on Christmas night. On the 27th of December, we had physical copies of the book. That is how fast print on demand is.
Wow.
Now, print on demand from CreateSpace, Ape, the paperback, costs about $5.60. If you went to offset printing in a large run, 10,000 copies, it would probably be $2.50. So we're overpaying $3, right? On the other hand, I don't have to buy 5,000, 10,000 copies at a time. And, I really think Ape will do well, but I'm not so confident that I want 5,000 copies sitting in my garage. And so, like taking the worst case where I'm paying $5.60, I'm telling you, I still make $9 per copy on something that cost me $5.60, which is remarkable. So yes, I guess I could make $12 per copy instead of $9 per copy, but at $12 per copy, I need a big garage. And I need to be able to, really convince myself that, yes, I'm going to sell these 5,000. The other thing is, with Ape in particular, which is different from a novel, Ape changes every 60 to 90 days. In the last 60 to 90 days, Amazon buys a company. They buy a book website, a social website. People change their policies. Apple changes software. Lots of things change. So we're constantly fixing this thing. Yeah, oh yeah. So this is the book that just won't ever be done. And so one of the problems is...
You should save them up and do a second edition and sell it for and make yourself another $7.
I don't want to do a second edition because any given change does not justify people buying the book again. If you save them up, I would have to save them up for a year or two, but then that means that for the whole year, it's inaccurate. And being the OCD kind of person that I am, it just offends me to think that someone might read this book and figure out that, Guy is wrong here.
Do you think that's typical of people publishing nonfiction ebooks, that they go and update it like that?
No, not at all. Because,
I didn't think so.
They're kind of like, when you give birth, when guppies give birth, they just like push them out. They're not nurturing them, right? Sometimes they eat them. So it is really because Sean and I are both kind of OCD. It just bugs the shit out of me to think that my book is inaccurate. And so that's why. And my model for this is, I want this to be the Chicago Manual of Style of self-publishing. And so the Chicago Manual of Style is in its 27th edition. And I want to have that kind of staying power. Because at the end of my life, I want people to say he wrote Ape, and he empowered an entire generation of people to self-publish, to write, and to not be subject to the whim and fancy of 6 companies in New York who are going to decide who the winners and losers are.
That's a pretty lofty goal. So tell me a little bit, you've written all these books, first time you've co-authored.
Yes.
Why did you, and what was that like?
Oh, I co-authored with Sean because, quite frankly, I did not understand the P part of Ape. I understood writing because I've written, at that point, 11 books. I understand entrepreneuring because God only knows, I know how to promote. So the question is, did I know how to use Word style sheets? Did I know how to put it into InDesign? Did I know how to make a table in contents? Because this concept that you take a Word document and you shove it into Kindle and you shove it into the iBookstore and magically all the table of contents is right and the pictures are right and the captions are right and the tables are right and the lists and bullets are right, you're hallucinating. It's just not true. And so everybody needs a Sean. And so, he had to fill in my gaps. And I had this big gap in the middle. So he was absolutely necessary. And if I had not used him, I would have either had to do a lot more research, but even research, it would not have been as good as someone who laid out APE. He laid out APE. He laid out what the plus. It wasn't theoretical. So I wanted to have just the truest representation of what it is to do the P part of APE. As far as working with the co-author, what we did is we had a shared Dropbox folder. And so that Dropbox folder was always saving, and typically he was 2 time zones ahead of me. So he was Central and I was Pacific. And so not only were we time zone separated, he was typically working on the P part, I was working on the A and the E part. So it never became sort of a logistical nightmare. It was rather easy, actually.
Cool.
Oh, well, certainly easier than me trying to figure out the P part of APE.
Right. I want to mention that there are 2 mics on stands here at the front and then about midway back. That is the way we're doing it for Q&A in this session, just because some people already ran the 5K this morning, so they don't need to run the ballroom, but the mic wranglers, I meant. So if you have a question, particularly about the publishing portion of what we're going to talk about, I have another question I want to ask about it. And while I'm asking it and you're talking about it, maybe you could come forward to one of the mics. We can get in a couple of questions about the APE portion of what we're going to talk about today. My question is, we got a question actually from someone in a comment, I think, on my blog post announcing, or maybe it was Twitter, Asha Sharma, and she said, what is the tipping point from authoring a blog to authoring a book? When do you know you're ready to take the plunge, and what's the major difference from someone who's like a dedicated blogger, really writes frequently, and what it takes to write a book?
The answer to the first question, when do you know you're, quote, ready? You never really know. I mean, it's not like there's some kind of change in hormonal levels or anything. And I will tell you, I think when you first write your first book, everybody has doubts. I mean, I'm on my 13th book and I have doubts. On my 13th book, I vacillate, I bifurcate between this is going to be the most popular book ever sold to no one's going to buy it. And it's just like every other day I flip between those two extremes.
What are you working on? I'll tell you.
Well, I have several ideas.
Oh, okay.
So one idea is, and I know you're going to come to this topic later, I happen to love Android. And I love Android, and I'm an advisor to Motorola. And so I want to write the best book about how to optimize an Android phone. And so I was going to call this book Guy Phone. So that's one idea. And I have another idea to be an intern at a large company to write about the experience of what it's like to be an intern if you're 60 years old. So this would be, if you know, there was an author named George Plimpton, and he wrote a book called Paper Lion, in which he trained with the Detroit Lions and then played in an exhibition football game. So this would be sort of Paper Lion meets, high-tech company.
So how big a company do you mean when you say big?
Oh, it's pretty big, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So those are, some of these things I'm noodling on. And so to answer the question, you don't really know. Well, first of all, I'll tell you how not to figure out if you are ready. Don't ask editors. Because basically, editors are like buffalo. They run in herds, and they have their heads down. When you believe you're ready to write a book, just freaking write it. Don't listen to anybody else. Just write it. And so certainly don't seek professional advice. Okay, don't do that at all. A very good test for you would be pretend you're at Amazon.com, or pretend that you're at a bookstore, if there are any bookstores left. And so you walk into this bookstore, or you're at Amazon's homepage, and there's J.K. Rowling, there's I don't know, Isabel Allende, there's Colin Powell writes a memoir or something, and there's Malcolm Gladwell, there's Jeffrey Moore, there's Bob Sutton, there's Clayton Christensen, there's Chip and Dan Heath, there's Pamela Slim, there's all these books. Now imagine your book is in that selection. You have to ask yourself, why would anybody give a shit that my book is there? And when you can answer that question, you should write a book. Now, the answer to that question is not because it's going to help me position myself as a thought leader and get speeches and get consulting. That's not the answer. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think many people go to Amazon or a bookstore and says to himself or herself, how can I help an author become a thought leader today? How can I help this author get more speeches? How can I help this author get more consulting? That's just not the frame of reference. You read a book for entertainment or education. And so when you can fulfill that, write the book.
Great, that's a great answer. I actually cannot see the mics midway back, so can somebody shout out if someone's waiting at them? No, okay. Oh, you are?
Hold on. Oh, jeez.
Can you wave your hand?
Oh.
Oh, I see you. Lights, okay.
Man, she's in Indiana
And
over there.
please share your name and your blog.
Okay.
Oh, wait, can we just hold? I forgot to answer the second question. The second question is the transition from blogger to author.
Sorry.
So the answer to that question is that understand that one of the hardest parts of being an author is that chapter 1 has to work with chapter 2, has to work with chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and at the extreme, chapter 35 has to reference and work with chapter 2. Now, on a blog, you wake up in the morning some days, you say, I'm going to write about this, and the next morning you write about this, and then something in the news happens, you write about this. So there's not necessarily the continuity from blog number 1 to blog number 36, and that's the hard point. I once wrote a book called Reality Check, which was a compilation of my blog posts about entrepreneurship, and it was very hard because those things were written over 2 years, and so I had to make a blog post that was 1 year old work with a blog post that was 3 years old, and at the end of the day, it was easier to just write from scratch, honestly. So.
Although I find with so many business books, like they're too much concerned about every like I get about halfway through and I'm like, all right, I get it, beating a dead horse, right? You don't think that's the.
There are a lot of business books that you get the gist in the first 30 pages, and the rest you wonder why.
Right. They want to be thought leaders and get speeches.
That's right.
All right. So we had a question in the back.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm up. Hi. My name is Danielle Herzog. Oh, look, there I am. Hello.
Where?
Hold on.
Oh, we can't really see very well.
Okay. I write for martinis and minivans.
Martinis and minivans?
Yes. They go hand in hand, just not at the same time. It's a blog for anyone who's ever needed a martini after driving a minivan around all day.
Can I interrupt you one more time? I have to say that the names of women's blogs are just the best. They are just the best. They really have great names. Oh, anyways, so go on.
You have a good name, too. Keep up the good work. You're doing
Thank you.
So my question is, one of the things I've heard is if you self-publish, that it kind of looks frowned upon by traditional publishers later.
Yeah.
And so I'm nervous about taking my book into the self-publishing world and maybe being blacklisted a little bit.
Okay. So, first of all, it's total bullshit. It used to
And
be.
I love how much you curse.
Okay, it used to be. You should see Gary Vaynerchuk.
Don't let that encourage
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
We've got
I will
got
say
sufficient-
nothing stronger than shit. Okay.
Good to know.
So it used to be that if you self-publish a book, it was a stigma because you couldn't get a real publisher. Okay? But now, I think that stigma has gone away. In fact, we should call it artisanal publishing as opposed to self-publishing. Because you would never go up to an artisanal baker, artisanal winemaker, artisanal brewer, artisanal chef and say, oh, you're a loser, right? You must be a loser because you couldn't get a job at Anheuser-Busch, or you couldn't get a job making Twinkies, or you couldn't get a job, at Gallo Wine, so you had to become an artisanal baker, brewer, or winemaker. No one would ever say that. So why would you say that to a self-publisher? Don't get me started on this. Okay. So the thing that's wrong with that theory is that if you self-publish a book and it does well, a traditional publisher will try to buy the rights. Okay? So the key is not whether you self-published it or not. The key is that you sold a lot of copies. That's all that counts. I don't think when St. Martin's or whoever first acquired 50 Shades of Grey, I don't think they said, wow, we just shouldn't acquire this book. It's selling a lot, but it's self-published. How good could it be? That's not the test. Now, I can give you some tips to avoid the stigma to the extent that the stigma still is around. So if you're going to self-publish a book, if your name is Jane Schmo, I suggest you not call the book The Schmo Way. I also suggest that you not call your publishing entity Schmo Press. Because The Schmo Way by Jane Schmo of Schmo Press kind of screams self-published. Another thing you can do to avoid the self-publishing stigma is you must hire a copy editor. The probability that you're a good writer and a good copy editor is zero. Absolutely zero, okay? Secondly, I will tell you, you must hire a cover designer. The probability that you're a good author and a good cover designer is also zero. And so these are the three things that, the copy editing is lousy, the cover is lousy, and the publisher's name is named after the author. Those are just the three smoking guns of self-published mediocrity. So don't do those three things. And then, just market the hell out of it. And so I'll tell you, there's sort of three plans in publishing. Plan A is you find an agent, you find an editor, the editor loves your book, gives you a $2 million advance, you buy a beach house so you can write your book in peace, you hire a nanny, your kids are getting straight A's, you don't have to take them to tutors anymore, no more soccer matches, nothing. Your husband, your wife is totally supportive. That's plan A. Okay? Plan B is you write the book. You write the book when you're sitting in your minivan waiting at the tutor. You write your book at Starbucks. You write your book any way you can. You write your book even though your kids are getting C's and D's and it's clear they're not going to get into Dartmouth or Brown or Yale, okay? Because you're compelled to write this book. You spend $1,000 for a copy editor. You spend $1,000 for a cover designer. You've been working for a year getting a great social media platform so that you don't have to suck up to any traditional publisher to market you. You take your book to market. You use social media, you get it out, you're successful. Then that would be plan B, okay, the self-publishing plan. Plan C is you do plan B and you're so successful with plan B, then a traditional publisher says, I want to buy the rights of your self-published book. You have done so well yourself with our added distribution and foreign rights abilities, we can take it to the next level. You sell the current rights of your book for $1 million. You do a 2-3 book deal for $2 million. Life is good, okay? That is plan C. So, underneath that question is, would I ever now the two-time self-publisher, would I ever go back to traditional publishing? Okay, and let me give you the answer. The answer is absolutely yes. If a traditional publisher said, Guy, here is $1 million. Here is your advance, $1 million. I would be saying, I don't care if you take 9 months to get the book out. I don't care if you screw up the cover. I don't care if you tell me to put crap in it that you don't want. For $1 million, I'm yours.
Is that the line?
It's the line.
It's the line.
You really, honestly, you cannot buy me, but you can rent me. Okay? So, that's the answer.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
And I don't think it has to be like 50,000 copies for a traditional publisher to notice a self-published book is done well.
No.
Terry Walters is someone who's spoken at a couple of our conferences, wrote Clean Foods, started as a little booklets she was giving to people who wanted her recipes. She ended up self-publishing. I think she sold 5,000 or 6,000 copies out of her kitchen, essentially. And then Sterling came along and helped her republish that with much nicer quality, and then publish Clean Eating. So I'm not sure it always has to be a huge amount of sales.
Well, what you have to, looking at it from the traditional publisher's point of view, they know they're wrong most of the time, right? So if they can find these instances where a book already has traction, that's just one less variable they have to worry about. If you've sold 5,000 copies by yourself, you've proven that the dogs are eating the food, much more so than this thing that they're going to give somebody an advance that's going to come out in 12 months. So you've reduced one big variable. Now, if you also had a social media platform, you would reduce a second big variable. So you're looking better and better. And that's the plan. So there is no scenario under which you should not use your blog and your social media presence to build a marketing platform. Because even in the best case where you get a traditional publisher with $1 million advance, those people are totally clueless. They're going to ask you, well, how are you going to market your own book? And so whether you're traditionally published or self-published, you need a platform. You have to do that.
Yeah. We have another question up front here.
Hi, my name's Tracy Sestilli. I'm from San Francisco, actually. I tried to catch you at South by, but I missed you. So my question is, I do social media marketing, okay?
Yep.
And I have long debated on, I write a daily blog, but there's so many social media marketing books out there today. I started doing tutorials called Back to Basics because I find that a lot of places where I go, and I also teach, so I have at least a place to do that. But I have like a paltry, 5,000 Twitter followers. From a social media perspective, I feel like it's not, big enough. And I'm just wondering, do you think that I should go down the route of doing a back to basics, type of book for people that are just getting started? Or do you think that I should continue on with my tutorials and charge for those?
Wow.
And maybe we can connect on LinkedIn and we can have coffee sometime. And I can pick your brain even more. Come up to the city.
It's honestly, it's very hard for me to answer that question.
I mean, you wrote a book on Google+, so.
Yes. I wrote a book on Google+, and, roughly 75% of the E part of APE is how to do social media for an author, truly. I would encourage you, I hate to say this, but do both. I mean, that's kind of what it takes. I can't sit here telling you which one would work. I think you should try both, and I think you'll fairly quickly see which one is delivering the best results. May I give you a philosophical model for social media?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we're actually in a perfect town to do this. So my philosophical model is the NPR model. And to me, NPR with Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is in Chicago, Fresh Air, Tech Nation, This American Life, all these things. I love NPR. NPR provides great content 365 days a year. A few days a year, it runs the telethon, right? And I can't tell you that I look forward to the telethon. But I tolerate the telethon. In fact, I give money to NPR because I feel a sense of obligation that NPR has generated such great content that, okay, let them run the telethon, right? If NPR ran the telethon 95%, I would not listen to NPR. If NPR had crap, I would not listen to NPR, and I would resent the telethon. But NPR has great content, and so it has earned the right to run the telethon. So you should think of yourself as NPR, that you want to provide such great content that you've earned the right to promote your book when it comes out, or promote your company, or promote your blog, whatever it is, that you have earned the right to promote something because you have provided something valuable. And that's the crux of social media for me. I'm always trying to find things that people would not have found were it not for my curation efforts. And so what I want is I want people to know that I have very interesting stuff. I want them to reshare it, retweet it, repost it, re-whatever it, to expose me to people who don't know who I am, so that those people follow me, so I have a bigger and bigger platform. I know whenever I explain this, like these social media gurus, which is already an oxymoron, but that's a different discussion. These social media gurus, they just go batshit. I mean, like probably 10 of you right now are tweeting out, guy doesn't know social media. Social media is about being social, not being platform. And social media is about kumbaya and sharing sensibilities and making friends and all this warm and fuzzy stuff. Hallelujah. Social media for me is building a platform by earning it so that I can use it to promote. That's what I do. And not a lot of people agree with that, but I got to tell you, I mean, it works. And if I may give you an even deeper, darker secret, the core of my social media existence is Google+. I happen to love Google+. I love the aesthetics. I love the threading. I love the communities. I love Hangouts. I love everything about Google+. To me is like the Macintosh of social media. It's better and used by fewer people. Okay?
That's what people should tweet right now.
Yeah,
Twitter. You should tweet that.
And so, I am so obsessed with Google+, but I realize that there's Twitter, and there's Facebook, and there's LinkedIn, and above all, there's Pinterest, which I cannot comprehend Pinterest at all, because I have the wrong chromosomes. And so if I may be so bold, I'll tell you, the secret to Guy Kawasaki's success on social media is a woman named Peg Fitzpatrick. And Peg Fitzpatrick is sitting right there. So what she does is she takes my Google+ stuff. She also looks at what else is interesting. And so she, shall I say, enhances me. And so now you know that behind every successful man on social media is probably an amazing woman. And so that is Peg Fitzpatrick. And one more thing, don't you dare frickin' try to steal her from me. I will make it my life's goal to bury you if you try to steal her from me. She does not have email. She does not have a cell phone. There's no way to get in touch with her.
I see it, and is that an iPhone?
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Now, is there someone at this mic back there? There is.
Yeah. Hi, Elisa. It's Jan.
Oh, hi, Jan.
I'm Jan Kabili, and I actually had Elisa as a guest on my G+ Hangout show, the Photoshop show, a couple of weeks ago, and she was great. Yay, Elisa.
Oh, thanks.
So I'm thinking, oh, by the way, I teach Photoshop and Lightroom for lynda.com. And I do that in addition to writing books. But honestly, writing books through a traditional publisher was such a pain for all the reasons that Guy said. So, Guy, here's what I'm thinking might be kind of a plan D that I'm interested in perhaps following, and I'd love your advice.
Okay.
Plan D would be write the book, do all of the putting it through Word and getting it in the right format. I can do all that, but I'm not good at marketing.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to hook up with my friend, Mr. King of Google+, or maybe he's the Prince of Google+, since you're the king. And that's Terry Ratcliffe, and let him distribute it.
Okay.
What do you think of that plan? And what do I need to know from him? What do I need to ask him to find out if that makes sense?
Okay, so Trey Ratcliffe has, I don't know, 7 million followers. It's because of his tremendous HDR photography, right? So because you're writing books about Lightroom and Photoshop, it fits, right? It kind of makes sense, right?
Right.
So I think that would be a great person to piggyback on. And Trey has started a publishing imprint, right?
Right, flatbooks.com.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, whether it's Trey or Scott Kelby, I mean, that's the way to go. I think that's a great alliance. It makes perfect sense. And then, honestly, it would help if you had a Peg Fitzpatrick. But there is only one Peg Fitzpatrick.
Okay, Peg, please contact me.
So I want to get into some geeky conversation here. You've evolved from the original Apple evangelist.
Yes.
I think probably that was the first time that was used in that context.
Was it? It was the second. I was the second software evangelist at Apple, and of course, evangelism in general. There was Jesus before us, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I would say you're a pretty heavy-duty Android evangelist and working for Motorola. And
why?
Why? Yeah, share why.
Because I seriously, I honestly think that Android is better than iOS. How many of you are on Android in here? Okay.
And how many are on iOS?
Yeah. Well, real women use Android. Be sure you tweet that out, right? So let me tell you, first of all, Android had 4G LTE long before iOS, and that is huge. 4G LTE is 5 to 10 times faster than 3G was, so that was huge. The first Android phone that I truly loved was a Motorola Droid Max, and it had like a battery that just lasted forever. I mean, compared to an iPhone, it was at least twice as good. So that was good. And then I noticed with Android, you know, you could pick your default browser. Maybe not everybody loves Safari. I like Chrome, so I could make Chrome my default browser. With Android, you know, you can, there's a place, you just click on a button and it lists all the apps alphabetically, which sounds like a small thing, but it's very important because with iOS, you put things in folders, and then, you know, if you wanted an alphabetic list of everything on the phone, you couldn't do it. You'd have to search for that app, right? And so this alphabetic listing is very useful. You can also create these aliases for Android apps, and you could put them in multiple folders. So like a lot of times, I can't remember if I put Chrome in the Google stuff folder or in the Internet stuff folder. Well, with Android, you could have the alias in both folders, so you don't have to think about that. Android phones have NFC. iOS doesn't have NFC.
But
so,
what's that really getting you right now?
Well, NFC is a very useful thing, and it's going to get even more useful on August 1st, let me say. So just trust me on that. NFC is a very, very useful thing. And
Can you, for those who don't know what it is, can you say the acronym? And
NFC, Near Field Communications. It recognizes chips, and it's a very useful thing. Point of sale, things
location,
like that.
and
So anyway, for various reasons. Oh, and also, I like the fact that Android phones use micro USB chargers. And so, you know, if any of you are Android users and you forgot your cable, you can go to probably any hotel and go downstairs to the front desk and say, do you have any cables that fit this phone? And you will get it. It's not true with iPhone. And speaking of cables, you know, like some stuff just irritates me. So I don't know why Apple had to change the cable for the iPhone. You know,
and the Air,
the Air, right? And I understand that maybe
smaller battery, longer, better battery. I mean, there are reasons, right?
I'm sure there are technical reasons, but okay, so I can put that cable in either way, upside down. I maybe have faster data communications. Maybe it charges faster, but I don't know. I go to sleep, I wake up, my phone's charged. That's all I really care about. Right? I'm not sitting there timing the freaking thing, so I don't really care. And you know, it just irritates me that now millions of cables and docks and all this thing is obsoleted. Just the anti-green aspect of that irritates me. And so for all those reasons, I fell in love with Android. And so, my allegiance, I think, is to whatever tool serves me best. And Android serves me best. So I have a Motorola phone that doesn't yet exist. I have a Nexus 7 tablet, and I have a MacBook Air, and that's my equipment.
All right. And if you have any questions about the tech side of it, come on up. But I see we have a question right here.
Hi, Guy. I'm Janice from 5 Minutes for Mom. I'm Janice from 5 Minutes for Mom. I've known you and interviewed you a long time ago for a while, but I wanted to ask you, you are, as we know, you're professing and preaching the gospel of Google+. And I remember hearing you speak when you only had 60,000 Twitter followers. I remember way back then. So what do you see as the next big thing in social media? Do you think it's this Google Plus continuing or where, I mean, now we've got Instagram with video. What are you thinking? I mean, is there another thing, or is it just Google Plus and Pinterest and Twitter are just going to continue to grow?
Well, in a rare moment of humility, let me say that I am not a visionary.
Okay.
So when I first saw Twitter, I thought it was the stupidest thing I ever saw. All right, so 8 years ago, I went to Twitter's homepage, and it's like, Lonely Boy 15, my cat rolled over. Tiffany 65, the line at Starbucks is long. And I was like, why do I care about this? I could not grok Twitter for the first 2 weeks. Finally, I started searching, and that's when I understood the power of Twitter. When I first used Google+, it was kind of positioned as like the Facebook like, right? It was like to put the +1. It wasn't a social media platform, so I didn't grok Google Plus at all for a while. So I'm telling you all this because I don't consider myself a visionary. I cannot predict the future. I can just try stuff and recognize stuff, I hope, and jump on a bandwagon. I don't consider, like Scobo will jump on anything that moves, right? It's kind of a sexual metaphor, but I didn't mean it that way. I don't do that.
Do you have a glass?
I do not have a glass because I tell you what.
I have a glass.
How many of you have a glass? See, now to me, Google's missing the boat there. Like, how can it be that in 5,000?
Well, they're not generally available yet, right? They're not selling them online.
Yeah, but it should be. What one person has glass here? I don't have glass.
I saw a couple others. I saw a couple others.
Oh, well, I don't have glass because I don't know. I don't have enough followers for them to consider me significant. I don't know why. So we're worried. How did we get on glass?
What you were talking about how you're not a visionary?
Oh yeah, I'm
you
not
like
a
to jump
visionary.
on
Right,
bandwagons.
exactly. So honestly, I don't want this to be the Peg Fitzpatrick session, but what happens is Peg Fitzpatrick sends me an email and says, "You got to try this," and that's when I try it.
Maybe she should have been my...
Yeah, maybe we should bring her up here. So the short answer to your question is I really don't know. But I pride myself in being not the cutting edge of embracing technology. I'm kind of slightly down the curve. Okay. And it's because, I'm so busy with Google+, I'm so busy with Motorola, and I have 4 children. My wife and I have 4 children. And so my children are 8, 12, 18, and 20. And so, when you've gone from man to zone, you truly understand, martinis and minivans. Trust me, I can relate to that metaphor. And so my kids are so important to me that I...
You don't want to waste your time looking for new things. You got enough on your plate.
Right. I'd rather Peggy waste her time.
Yeah. So that would be my follow-up question then is, if say Twitter and Facebook are my strong suits, do I, not using me as an example, but just hypothetically, should we all then try to make sure we have pegs to make sure all of our bases are covered?
Not everybody can afford Peg.
Okay. So Peg lights?
Well, if I were to give one blanket recommendation today, I would say, I think, and it's not because I'm a Motorola advisor, which is obviously owned by Google. I truly do believe this in my heart. Everybody should get on Google+.
Okay.
Because Google+, it helps you in search, it helps you in communities, it helps you with Hangouts online, Hangouts on air. It helps you every way. And You know, it would be different if I were telling you embrace this product from 2 guys in a garage or 2 gals in a garage and they have $2 million of seed funding. Google Plus is Google. I mean, this is the 8 million pound gorilla. I'm not telling you to jump on a bandwagon that, you know, might be successful. Google is going to make Google Plus successful. And we need to come to grips with that.
I know, it's hard. I've been kicking, Google Plus is dragging me kicking and screaming. I haven't, for some reason, wanted it. Like, it's like, you're making me do it because you're Google and you're God, and you have, but I guess I love Facebook so much, it's been hard for me to.
Well, I do think with all these tools, you need to use them for a while to get them. You can't get them, like I didn't get Instagram for a long time at all. I'm like, if I want to tweet a picture, I can take a picture in Twitter, and that's what I was using it for, was kind of take a picture and send it to Twitter. But then after using it a while, I kind of realized, wow, there's a whole community and engagement on Instagram that doesn't happen on Twitter around images at all. And there's a whole like window into people's worlds, and there's a whole different kind of relationship building that happens on Instagram that I really actually enjoy. And you know, and I signed up for Twitter in 2006, and I didn't get it at all at first, but now it's like I probably have the most fun hanging out on Twitter. I don't use it like you do. I do use it to like be al kumbaya and talk to my community and like have conversations and all of that. But for me, it's not just, it makes my job fun. You know, I'm lucky that's part of my job, right? But, you know, I do think you have to try to use it, any tool, any new tool, and be a real user and figure it out before you can even really know. And I do think, I will say this, because I've been on Google Plus since day one, and I do have a lot of people who've circled me, and so I feel an obligation, like it's the place where I have the most following, even though that seems totally ridiculous to me. And I don't think there's something about the user interface that doesn't immediately translate. You're supposed to engage here like you would engage on a blog, like you would engage in Twitter. It feels a little broadcast. And I've told the team that I think that I talk to smart, savvy social media women who say, you know, I post things on Google Plus and there's crickets, nothing's happening. And when I ask, oh, well, who are you following and where do you comment and whose Google Plus are you really into? And they're like, oh. And they would never do that on their blogs. They would never just put things out and not go engage and not comment and not read other blogs. And they would never do that on Twitter either, right? You would have conversations. So I believe that's a user interface thing, but Guy is not a visionary and I'm not a user interface person. So well, I don't have the answer about how to fix that.
I'll give you 2 tips. So on Google Plus, install a Chrome extension called Replies and More.
Okay.
Because what Replies and More enables you to do is rather than having to type plus and then the person's name, you just click on reply and it'll turn the thing around and it'll already automatically enter the plus mention. So if you did that, so the beauty of having a plus mention is now the person that you're plus mentioning gets a Gmail saying that he or she was mentioned. Okay. So it just steps up the interaction because now people are notified that you referenced them. And Replies and More makes that infinitely easier. I'm astounded that Google hasn't built that in. The second thing is, I think you need, vis-a-vis Facebook versus Google Plus, the way I explain it is that Facebook is for people that you already know, people that you went to school with, people that you are related to, you know, people in your existing social sphere. By contrast, Google Plus is for passions. And these are for passions that are your personal interests, but they might not be shared with your people on Facebook. Because if your people on Facebook are predominantly your relatives and your classmates, let's say they don't share a passion for photography, right? So it would be kind of hard to get your people on Facebook to embrace photography so you have this commonality. I think it's much easier to go to Google Plus, type in the keyword photography, and find strangers, i.e. people who you don't know, who share your passion. So you find people like Trey, who you don't know, but share your passion, and you become friends with them. Okay. And that's, I think, the mental approach to Google Plus.
Good job, Guy. I will be a better Google Pluser. My twin, Susan, we own 5 Minutes from Mom together. It was actually she who interviewed you, and ironically, she interviewed you with spinach in her teeth, and we had to cut all of the shots. At Mom 2.0 years ago, she interviewed you, and when we looked at the shots after, we had to cut, like our cameraman didn't notice that she had spinach in her teeth, so we always laugh to everybody and say, Susan interviewed Guy Kawasaki with spinach in her teeth. So that's one of her claims to fame.
Was this in Houston?
Yeah, years ago. But
Guy-
sorry, I was just gonna say, she's been using Google Hangouts and has been getting after me for not using them. So, Guy, I will be a good girl. I will go home and I will be dedicated to Google Plus.
Thank you.
Job well done.
So you brought up you're not on the cutting edge because you've got a lot of going on in your life, and you brought up you have 4 kids, wow, and you're married, and so I need to ask you, because you know people don't ask men this a lot, but how do you do it all? How do you balance your work and your life?
Well, first of all, you presume that I do balance my life, which is debatable. First of all, I have an amazing wife. That helps. And so my wife, God bless her, she runs the family. And so that's one. We also have a nanny that's helpful. And I have Peg to help me in social media. So there's like 3 women behind me. And so I'm very fortunate that way. I also, I don't have a job where I'm a employee who has to punch into a company and be there 60 hours. I don't have all these staff meetings. I don't have to show my face to prove that I believe in something. And I can pick and choose. I'm 59 years old, and so at this point I can sort of pick and choose what I do. And so I have chosen a lifestyle where there's only 2 conferences, literally 2 conferences that I will do this for, which is to get on an airplane without a speaker's fee, okay? This is one of them. And the other one is South by Southwest. So there literally is, and what I tell people, I'm very upfront. I tell people, I have 4 children. I will not get on an airplane for free. And I don't care if you tell me it's the most strategic, high level, great connections, biz dev, position you as a thought leader. I don't care about any of that. If you want me, you pay. It's really quite simple. And so I draw the line there. When I'm at home, it's not like I'm going into an office. I work at home. I take my kids to school in the morning. Oftentimes, I'll describe my day. I mean, a lot of times I wake up at about 7. I take my daughter to school at 7:30. I go to Cafe Baroni in Menlo Park, California, right next to Kepler's, and I answer email there for about 2 hours. Then I go and play hockey for 2 hours, come back to Baroni, I eat lunch and I answer email for 2 hours. Then I go pick up my daughter. And then, sometimes I help her with her homework, not as often as I should. And then I get back on email, then I go to sleep, and the process just repeats itself the next day. So that's kind of my life. And so I am there a lot for my family. Honestly, at this point in my life, I am not defined by my work anymore. I don't need to have the visibility and the power and the title to be happy. At this point in my life, like I have 4 little startups. Mm-hmm. Actually, one's in college, so I had 1 IPO already. And so that's kind of, my orientation. And to the external world, that's the boundaries that I've set. And if they can't deal with it, life goes on. That's just the decision I made. Because I think at the end of my life, I would like to be able to say that I had 4 great children and that I empowered people to change the world. That's what I want to do. And so I empower people with writing, I empower people with speaking, and I empower people with advising their company. Sometimes I empower people with investing, but primarily it's my writing and my speaking that I use as mechanisms to empower people, because I have this concept that my wife has a master's in theology, so she's not quite aligned with my theory, but my theory is that heaven is an airplane, and hell is a car. So if you're not a good person, you go to hell, which already I know theologically is wrong. It's not whether you're good or bad, it's whether you accept Christ or not. I understand that theory, but just in case, because we're talking about eternity here, right? It's still, you should play it safe and be good. So I believe that, heaven is this airplane and hell is this car. So you can be stuck in a car for all of eternity, or you can be in an airplane. Airplane is much better. It's in the sky, you're flying around, there's no traffic. It's a lot better to be in an airplane. Now, further refinement of my theory is that this airplane has 3 classes. So you could be in heaven in coach. You'd be eating chicken-like substances in a seat that doesn't recline. You could be in heaven in business class. Now it reclines 45 degrees and you're eating a beef-like substance. Or you could be in like Singapore Airlines first class. Singapore Airlines first class, you have your own large TV. There's like 1 flight attendant per person. The thing rolls completely flat back, and they cook the meal for you. And so my theory is I want to be in this airplane in Singapore Airlines first class, and to do that I believe that I need to help people make the world a better place as opposed to amass money. And so I want to be in Singapore Airlines first class. That is my philosophical sort of orientation to life at this point. Okay?
Well, that's so I know some of you still have questions, and we are at the end of time, but we can stay here for a while, and there are these 500 copies of Ape to pick up. I just had to see where the car or airplane thing was going, so I knew we were going to run to the end there, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that doesn't really align with any recognized religious theory, but please join me in thanking Guy Kawasaki for joining us today.
Thank you.